This video is really a continuation of the last video where we were talking about planning your build. These are other things that you need to consider when you are planning your build, mostly to do with health and safety. Incidentally, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe now. If you'd like to get a copy of my book, You a Property Developer, then I'll tell you how you can access that at the end of this video. So let's get stuck into the health and safety. It all comes under what we call the CDM, or Construction Design and Management Regulations, which came into force in 2015, superseding an act that was in place from 2007. And it's really to do with all the health and safety around your site. And so there are various responsibilities. There's the client responsibility, there's the contractor responsibility, there's the designer responsibilities. So within these regulations, you need to understand what your role is as the person who's maybe initiating the development. You would be considered the client. You've got the different people who have designed all the different parts of it. So there's lots of different technicalities there that you need to understand under the CDM, or Custom Design Management Regulations. So that's something that you should certainly study up on. We do actually cover this very, very extensively, this whole raft of stuff, in our Property Developers Mastery Program. So if you're interested in that, then drop us a line and we will can have a discussion about that if that's something that interests you. So it goes without saying that with the health and safety on the site is really very important. Construction sites are dangerous by just the nature of the work that they do. Construction sites are dangerous, and so health and safety is something that you really want to pay a lot of attention to. Firstly, from the welfare of the people working on the site, you clearly want to be looking after them, but also from a legal point of view, falling foul of the law, and also the liability. Should something happen to somebody on the site, you want to make sure that you have mitigated the circumstances of that as much as possible. And that's what really the Act is really designed to do, to help you manage your construction site so as that you're mitigating all the risks, so as you're exposing people to the least amount of liability. But you can't really eradicate that you can't eradicate that risk, unfortunately, but you can mitigate it. And so you would do that where you've got a particular situation which is maybe has a certain amount of risk applied to it, by providing at least the right protective equipment. So if somebody is using perhaps to cut through a girder and they're using a steel saw, then there's going to be sparks coming from that. They've got to make sure that they've got the right protective gear on, in terms of headgear, in terms of eye gear, so that they are protecting themselves. So that's just a small example. So you really need to be considering everything that you are going to do on the site, and that would form the part of a risk assessment. So the risk assessment is going to look at the particular job that needs to be carried out. It looks at all the different components of that job, and therefore what the risks are within that job. That's fairly obvious. And then how can you mitigate that, whether you mitigate that through PPE, or whether you have a completely different method that you can approach in trying to accomplish the outcome that is desired for that job. Excuse me. And so you're going to have method statements, which is going to basically outline how this is going to be carried out, so the different steps in carrying out a particular task. And then if there are accidents that occur, or there's infection, then that's going to come under the COSHH or RIDDOR part of the Act. And so there are different things that you need to be able to, for instance, you have to report the accident, depending on what the accident is. And you have to then fill out various reports and make sure that you have complied and you did everything possible to prevent that from happening in the first place. And then the site itself, people are going to be moving around. You need to have a traffic plan in place. In other words, where vehicles coming in, where the vehicles going out, depends on the size of the site. A small site is going to have less of that. But what you're going to want to make sure is that when heavy plant equipment is moving around, that that somehow they're being protected. So, for instance, if you've got a JCB reversing, is there somebody at the back of the JCB to ensure that other people are not suddenly trying to skip behind it? And you know, obviously the JCB driver is going to be looking out for this, but they can't be looking on all angles at all times. So maybe you need somebody at the back of them who then guides people and has that particular responsibility while it is moving around the site. And that role in a larger construction site is known as a banksman. So they essentially make sure that as equipment is moving around, that people are aware and that they're out of the site of, or out of the line of danger, should I say. Clearly there's a lot in this, and I'm probably not doing it really justice in this video, so I think the most important thing is that I make you aware that you need to be reading this act and understanding all the different things that you have a liability and responsibility for under the CDM regulations, in order to make sure you comply, but also you have a safe working environment, and that you are mitigating all the risks to prevent yourself from being sued, or at least even if you are sued, that you are be able to do it with, is going to be covered within your insurance policies, because you have taken the right actions. And because in the view of the law, all accidents are preventable, and so we can do much to prevent accidents, but sometimes they do happen, unfortunately, and it's usually because there is some sort of fall down somewhere in some sort of part of the planning process. But of course, if you haven't planned it, then that responsibility is very firmly on you, and you may have problems with your insurance because you have not complied with the things that you said you were going to do and you haven't actually done them. And then as we sort of like wind this up, one of the things that you're going to want is to register your site fairly early, so that you have a physical address. There's various guidelines around that, but generally that is done through the council, and then it's registered with the post office. And then finally, you're going to want to have contracts in place for your different contractors, so as that there's a firm understanding between you and them on what is expected of them and what you expect of them, and so therefore that you really reduce the amount of possibility of disputes, I suppose is really the word I'm looking for. So this is kind of like, it's very difficult actually, because it's a huge subject, and I probably haven't done an awful lot of justice in covering it in this video, but I really did want to just make you aware that you have significant responsibilities under the CDM regulations. And as I said before, if you are interested, we cover this in great detail in our Property Developers Mastery program. I finished the video and realized I hadn't told you, as I promised at the beginning, how you can get a copy of You a Property Developer. Simply go to our website of the same name, You a Property Developer, click on the button, get your copy now. All I ask is that you pay the £2.80 postage and packaging to allow that to send, for me to send it to you, should I say. So I'll send you a hard copy of this book here, You a Property Developer. Now let's get back to the video. So that's it for this video. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe now. Our next video is going to be on funding the build, which will be the video here, and the previous video to this, as we talked about, was about planning your build, and that will be that video there. Until the next time, take care and thank you for watching. Bye bye.